Hello once again, my readers of good, awesome literature and stuff like that. My name is Nick Pell, and as usual, this is coming from my white room. Now, this week we begin a whole new trilogy. Last week we finished off the Hunger Games, and this week we begin the Millennium Trilogy with The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. This is by Stieg Larsson, I think that's how you pronounce his name. He's a Swedish writer who died in 2004. And one thing that's kind of interesting about him is that, as far as what I understood from the little description about him on the book's cover, he sent in all three manuscripts for Girl with Dragon Tattoo, Girl Who Played with Fire, and Girl Who Kicked the Hornet's Nest. And then shortly after that, he died. So it's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of like he foresaw his own death. I don't know if he was dying originally or not, but I just think that's kind of interesting how he just wrote a whole trilogy and it ended up being a bestseller, and he wrote the whole thing all in one go. Going aside from that, let's begin with the characters for this awesome novel. First off, we have Mikael Blomkvist, and as usual, if I pronounce any characters' names wrong, please forgive me, but I'm going on assumption here. And Mikael is a journalist who works for Millennium, which is a magazine company. And he really very quickly into this novel gets in trouble legally because he printed an article which criticized a very rich businessman without any real proof or evidence to back it up with. At least I believe that's how it went down. So this starts off like in the very first chapter. It tells you what's going on with Mikael's life. And we also have our second main character, apart from Mikael, which is Elizabeth Salander. She is basically a genius in almost all aspects of the word. And she is an amazing hacker. That's how she gathers all her information. She works for a security company in which she is hired to find out basically everything she possibly can about certain individuals. Basically do background checks on them, and she is able to dig up the most interesting things, I guess you could call it. But yeah, that's Elizabeth. We also have Erika Bircher, and she is a part owner of Millennium alongside Mikael, and she has been his longtime best friend. But they are on and off lovers. She is married, however, so it does make kind of an interesting dynamic, because Erika is married, like I said, and her husband is okay for some reason with her sleeping with Mikael whenever she feels like it. So I don't know, that's kind of interesting, I think. You don't really see that too often. But she's also a very smart woman, and, well, you have to be to own Millennium. And then we also have Henrik Vanger, and he is an old man who has really become obsessed with finding out what happened to, I think, his niece? I don't really remember how they're related, but he's obsessed with finding out what happened to Harriet Vanger, and she is our last main character. And she went missing back in 1966, and no one has any idea what happened to her. She's kind of up and vanished during an accident on a bridge. There are some other side characters involving Elizabeth and Mikael's characters, but for the most part, these five are the main ones that you have to look for and worry about. So we move on to the plot. And the book begins, like I said, right after the fall of, or actually during the fall of Mikael Blomkvist. Like I said, he has printed an article which he has basically no proof to back up, and he gets in trouble for it, and gets a prison sentence, to be honest with you. Very shortly after his fall from grace, basically, and before he has to serve his prison sentence, he gets recruited by Henrik Vanger to find out what happened to Harriet. And that is basically where Mikael spends most of his time in the story. During the same time as these events are going on, the story introduces Elizabeth Salander, and we see her life and stuff that's going on with her, and we see that she's basically a genius expert hacker who can basically find anything if she's got a laptop and resources. And eventually, I'm not going to say how or why or any of that stuff, but eventually these two meet up and they work together to solve the case. And the story itself has a prologue, it has an epilogue, and then it's split into 4 different parts. And the chapters are a little bit interesting. They go by dates in which this is in which certain things are happening. I've never really seen that done before in a book, to my memory, but it was really interesting to see it done. And there are 465 pages total, and yeah, that's the plot. So yeah, please don't spoil anything about it in the comments. I will have a trilogy review like I did with Hunger Games and Song of Ice and Fire during the Girl Who Kicked the Hornet's Nest review in 2 weeks. So leave your spoilers and discussions and whatnot there. And we have themes. 3 themes this time, not the traditional 4, just because it's kind of hard to pick out some. And first up is morals, and this would be along the line of basically every character in this book and dealing with what's the right thing to do, how should we proceed with this, what are the consequences of our actions here, stuff like that, and that has a huge impact over the story itself. We also have trust, and this deals mainly with Lisbeth because she has almost never been able to trust anyone with her secrets or with her life, basically, ever. She has been very rebellious, and she's always kind of just kept to herself. She has to learn how to trust someone, and it's kind of interesting to see her do that. And then also, I don't know if you could call it a theme necessarily, but something that comes up quite a bit is feminine abuse or female abuse. And at the beginning of each part, it has kind of a little fact about Sweden and women getting abused, I guess. And this is a theme that kind of carries through, at least with Lisbeth originally, and then eventually with the Harriet case. So those are 3 things to kind of keep in mind before you read it and during your read of the book, because they are prominent in the book. So yeah, on to enjoyment. And I really did like this book a lot. I had seen the movie a few months before I read the book, so I knew generally what was going to happen, but seeing the events play out in book form instead of movie form probably enriched the experience, if nothing else. So while I was not really surprised by anything, because I knew what was going to happen, like I said, the book itself is written in such a format that it allows you to kind of just read and enjoy the experience and whatnot. It is a little bit slow to begin with, I'll just say that about it, when it's just introducing stuff and not really, I guess, it's not really moving the plot very quickly, because like I said, it's introducing things and letting us know what's going on in this world. But it is kind of interesting because the characters are being introduced and everything's being revealed, and you kind of need to pay attention for the whole thing, because if you miss any certain detail, you could be potentially lost and not know what's happening in certain aspects or what certain people are talking about or anything like that. But overall, I did really like the book. I'm excited to read The Girl Who Played with Fire, which I will start today, and you will have a review of it on Sunday. I would recommend it if you enjoy mystery novels, any of Larsson's novels. I don't know if he's wrote any more, I assume he has. Or if you have seen the movie. The movie followed the book really well. And yeah, that's about it. My name is, as always, Nick Pell, and as usual, keep on reading.